Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game while criticizing current players. Today, we are talking about season 43, the Merge episode. This is episode 6, Mergatory. And I love that they use this term because I don't think I've heard it before, and it is perfect for this scenario. I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh Wessler, joined today by only one other co-host, Mr. Derek Kubicek.
Not the person you were expecting, huh? Ryan is usually the mainstay, but we had some dust blow in from our evil neighbors in Nebraska, and he is feeling like death from the chin up. So we ran some tests, and he just wasn't up to it. So we're your stand-ins for the night. You'll have to deal with our Rubius opinions rather than Ryan's always great and fantastical opinions, as he will tell you, and so often be utterly wrong, especially about burn books.
Yeah, what are we gonna do without him? Who knows? This is the only second time that we've had a podcast episode sans Ryan. If you remember back, I don't even 2020 probably, we had to do one where he got COVID, I think, or maybe just some general sickness, and it was in the peak COVID time, so we were just being extra cautious. And I think me and Derek did a pretty good job, if I do say so myself. So I think we're going to be fine here, so you can stick around and keep listening.
Absolutely, and this is what Ryan would say if he were here. Let's get into the Survivor content of the episode. Like, let's get a move on. So, Josh, what did you think, generally speaking, before we get into spoilers, of the Merge episode? BYOB.
Yeah, dude, I love Merge episodes so much. I really enjoyed this episode. Maybe it was just because it was a Merge episode and you see everyone coming together and there's so many things going on. It's very strategy heavy. Those are my favorite parts of Survivor, as with a lot of people. So it automatically just makes it a good episode. But I think that the show did a good job at also keeping you guessing and not knowing which way it was going the entire time. I'm glad that I didn't really have to sweat my winner pick. I did for like 2 minutes right away, and then I saw the direction that they were starting to go, and I'm like, oh no, I think I'm gonna be fine. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think I was talking with Ryan because he was watching with me. I'm over at his place. He wants to stay caught up on Survivor, and he was saying that he wished that the episode was 90 minutes long. And I said, you know what? Yeah, for the Castaway Consultants, maybe we want a 90-minute episode. But for your general audience, or if you're just looking through an entertainment lens, I think that the pacing, the sort of frenetic, we didn't really have time to contemplate how quickly things were changing, morphing, merging, getting turned on their heads, people getting caught with double speak, people throwing other people under the bus. Like, it was all like bam, 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 bam. And I think that's, for all intents and purposes, how it happened on the island. So crunching all of that into a 60-minute, or I guess 43-minute episode with commercials felt really satisfying for me to watch just as a viewer. Yeah, of course I want to see a few more of those strategy talks, but I think we got enough. I think we got everything that we truly needed to understand the rise and fall of the person who went home. And I was on the edge of my seat the whole episode. So from an entertainment standpoint, I think this might be my favorite of the season so far. And I actually am not sure that it's close.
Yeah, it's either this or I don't know, the premiere.
Yeah, and the premiere was great.
Yeah. I'm gonna side with Ryan a little bit on that, which is like I'll take any Survivor content that I get, but I do absolutely understand the argument for the pacing side, because it had me going the entire time. I don't really pay attention to commercials too often during Survivor, but I found myself tonight going like, man, commercials seem to be going really long, just because I was waiting for it to come back and I wanted to see what was going to end up happening. And that's always a great sign when you have something like that happen. I think the only way that you'd be able to push this into like a 90-minute is if you added other aspects to it, kind of like what we saw in like 41 and 42, where it was kind of like part A and part B of the Merge. But I think I think I like this structure better overall.
All right. Well, unless you have anything else, I think it's best if we just jump maybe into the spoiler section of this episode.
No, that works for me. And you know what? I'll kind of let you take the Ryan role if you want it here.
Oh, I will do my absolute best. We all know that Ryan is a pretty darn good narrator. He's very well practiced. He does it across 2 podcasts, and I am just a stand-in. So,
Yep.
by the way, recommendation: go watch the episode if you haven't seen it yet. So, 3, 2, come on, get out of here. 1. So we're going to see Baca absolutely implode tonight, which culminates in this sort of volcanic eruption that I couldn't even describe it anything better than just like total family drama. It was like total drama island, the animated series, and Ellie's gonna end up going home tonight as a result. So to kick myself, last week I said, aha, Baca's coming in as the most unified tribe. Absolutely not. They are coming in as the least unified tribe. So tried to call my shot, but you can't make them all. This is just for fun.
At freezing cold takes here.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I'm happy when these things prove me wrong because it makes it all the more entertaining. So, yeah, we're going to lose Ellie tonight. And the hints are there early on based on editology. I'm better at the game than I thought I was. But, famous last words. But there really are a lot of components and a lot of blocks that need to slide in and out of place in order for it to kind of fall on her. So, yeah, do you have anything else before we, jump right into the chronology of the episode?
You know what? Before we move on, I think I think we need to offer up one big LOL here to Ryan's winner pick. Because we did the same thing to you when you were gone, and now the same thing to him when he's gone. So LOL, Ryan.
Yeah, because Ellie was his episode 1 winner pick, was it not?
I mean, technically,
Yeah,
it's Ryan.
It's Ryan.
His winner pick is Ryan.
But if he wasn't locked in to Team Ryan,
I'm not going to take it away from him. But he did say if he wasn't forced into playing the Ryan hand, that his go-to would be Ellie.
I wonder how it feels to know that his ridiculous 3rd grade strategy is better than his 28-year-old learned opinion.
Oh, yeah, and we saw some great moves from Ryan this episode.
Well, I mean, this is one of Ryan's stronger episodes, in my opinion. But we'll see where this all kind of culminates, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
All right, so you ready to jump into this episode?
Let's do it.
All right, so episode 6, Mergatory. So we got tree mail at Vessi and Coco. The merge is here. So we arrive, and Sammy has a fun moment where he goes, BYOB, where's the party at? And of course, we're all on the beach. We don't have buffs given out or anything like that yet. We're going to be doing a different iteration of what we saw in season 41 and 42. But the merge is here for all intents and purposes. I mean, we're on one beach. At worst, it's Survivor One World. So intermingling has begun. And of course, when this sort of thing starts, you need to be careful about the conversations that you're having right as you hit the beach. First impressions are important. I don't think we got anything super notable here, other than the fact that Owen breaks down all of the advantages and idols owned by pretty much everyone, with the exception of Cody having an idol. He didn't talk about that one. And I only thought this notable because I feel like this is emblematic of the current era of Survivor, where 5 minutes onto the merge beach, Owen, being only on Baca Tribe, knows where almost everything else is based on just a few conversations.
Yeah, he was only missing Cody's idol, which I'm sure he was actually clued in on later on, based on I think it was Ellie's intuition or the information that she got from other conversations about the bead hat, which I love the payoff on. But he rattled off every single other advantage, extra vote, idol, no vote. Like he knew everything just from a couple of conversations. So that's pretty impressive.
And you have to think that almost every player on the beach is able to do that at this point. Almost everything is public forum. And on a certain level, I guess that makes it interesting. But for a season of Survivor, I kind of hate to see it. Like even Carla with her secret idol relative to her tribe. I mean, anyone is going to be able to figure that out as soon as they start talking about beads. It just so happened to come up that Cody made a hat out of all the beads. So, Cody was kind of the victim of the Beware Advantage twist or the Beware Advantage methods now. And it's very likely that this could happen to Carla as soon as next week.
Yeah, interestingly, when Ellie found out about Cody's hat, the only people she was having a conversation with were people on Baca and Vessi. So I don't believe there are any Coco members there. So and Carla hasn't told anyone about the idol. So it still remains a little bit of a mystery if more of that gets communicated about, the information on the beads. Yeah, it's gonna circle around and it's gonna come back to Carla. But for now, it's kind of interesting that it hasn't come up yet.
Yeah, and part of that might have been the sort of early ties between Vessi and Baca before that kind of falls apart later in the episode. But other than you already mentioning Ellie with the beads observation with Cody, nothing really happens. We're gonna go straight to the earn the merge challenge. So we need to talk about this a little bit because Jeff very explicitly says before the challenge begins, no twist. When you're in, you're in. All he needed to do was go around and pinky promise and then issue a formal apology to Danny.
Yep, and everyone is celebrating. He even said the words. I might not get this exactly right, but he said basically, you have the feast, you have your immunity, whatever, and no one can take it away from you. And everyone claps and cheers, and it's beautiful. And I know it pained Jeff just a little bit to say that and to see that kind of reaction to him, but I don't care. I'm so glad that we are back to this because this is what on this podcast, I believe all of us kind of were in agreement that's like, you're so close. You're so close to the perfect adjustment if you want to change up the merge. Just get rid of the hourglass, get rid of whatever Exile Island you might do the winning in, and then just move on from there. And that's exactly what they're gonna do here.
Given where we're at, and by the way, I love this iteration of Earn the Merge. I've seen on Twitter that people are kind of polarized on it. I don't mind this at all as a different dynamic. I think it's interesting. I think it's fair. I think it encourages new groups of people to work together and also be able to bond over at least one challenge. Doesn't just jump straight into individual gameplay from very hierarchical siloed tribes. So I really like this iteration. Ryan was saying the one thing that he would change from this one is, they did the earn the merge, but he also liked in the last seasons where the remaining contestants had one more chance to earn individual immunity on their own. So Ryan wants to see that added back in as well. I'm fine with this as well because, this is your chance to earn the immunity. And also, Jeff Pinky promised this time that nobody's taking it away. So that's almost as good as, giving another person an opportunity at individual immunity. So I like where we're at. I like Ryan's version as well. But this is head and shoulders above the rest because I agree with you. I think we all agreed that Hourglass was one of the more unfair twists in the history of the show.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And for the people who might be polarized online about this, I don't really know what solution they might have. I'm assuming their opinion is basically, no, we just want it to be the old way. So, you're probably not going to end up getting that, so deal with it.
So we're going to do a bead draw or a rock draw in order to decide our new team. So, we got one gray rock and then some blue rocks, some red rocks. I don't remember who was what color, but I do have the teams written down here. So on team one, I believe it was the blue team. We are going to end up with Gabler, Jesse, Ryan, Janine, Dwight, and Carla. And then the red team, team two, we're going to end up with Cassidy, Owen, Sammy, James, Ellie, and Cody, leaving Noel with the gray rock. And we're going to do a callback to Survivor Nicaragua with Mr. Dan when Jeff says, you just kind of get to hitch your wagon to a horse. And if you pick the right one, congrats. You got immunity. You've earned the merge. Make your choice. And I like this as well. I thought this was way more fair than sending them to exile for 2 days and then giving them an hourglass.
Perfect. Yep. This is the perfect, in between for them to choose. So I have no issue with it. And I do agree that Noel had kind of a tough time here deciding which tribe because they seem pretty even. Personally, I would have gone with the red tribe. I would have been wrong. But that's who I was kind of leaning towards at the beginning.
That's crazy to me. I would have picked red hands down. You give me Cody, Owen, and Sammy to get through the physical portion, and then you have an Ellie on the puzzle portion along with like your Owen. Yeah. I mean, I know that Noelle has very limited knowledge of them, but I think on paper the red team was kind of the easy choice, and she went the other direction. As Robert Frost said, sometimes the road less traveled, though, because this is going to pay off. Blue's going to pull it out. And I mean, just of note, Ryan goes upside down to pull up Carla, who's got a laceration on her hand. Oh yeah, my wild. Goodness.
And like, I don't want to blow this or anything like that, but like it seemed like it was a bit of a blowout up until the puzzle. It seemed like they were quite a bit behind the red team, and then puzzles, great equalizer. They were able to catch up just because of how fast they caught on to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you already said it. Puzzle's the great equalizer. Ellie's going to feel responsible for this. This isn't why she gets voted out at all, but it's still of note that she had her fate in her hands. So there's some poetry there, even if it doesn't play into the strategy or the edit. Yeah, with the blue team winning and then Noelle sort of retaining immunity along with that, they're going to get a merge feast. So they're going to go off and do their thing. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go right back to the new merge beach with our unsafe contestants, which, as a reminder, the people who are no longer safe as a result of this challenge: Cassidy, Owen, Sammy, James, Ellie, and Cody. Reminder for the audience that Cody has an idol, but he's the only one who is unsafe, who has an advantage. Everyone else who has hardware in their pocket is on the winning side, which I thought was crazy how that distribution worked out. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and everyone who was at risk here of going home, like everyone had a really close ally at least that had an advantage. And I mean, I was expecting idol get in, armor advantage get in. If you listen to our last podcast, I mentioned in my predictions that I thought that there were going to be at least a couple that were played, and we got nothing. And I know that only one person here who was vulnerable had an advantage, but I was expecting people to just want to push things towards their own agenda and what they wanted to happen, but that wasn't the case here. So kind of impressive, really.
Yeah. So the first strategy talk we're going to get back at camp is James is going to pull Cody aside, which sketches people out a little bit. But ultimately, we're going to end up with a conversation between Ellie and some of the other Baka members, I think some Vessi members eventually, but using Cody as a decoy to turn on Coco. And they don't say this explicitly, but I'm guessing she's doing that because if things go awry, at least Cody has an idol. I don't know if she ever explicitly says that she figured this out, but I mean, so far, so good. Ellie wants to work with Vessi, and she's basing that on their collaboration in previous challenges, something that we mentioned on the podcast last week. And then her plan is to split the vote between Cassidy and James over on Coco. So far, on paper, everything is going right as we thought it was going to. She tells Cassidy and James, of course, on Coco that she's willing to take out Cody. Cassidy kind of believes her because she kind of wants to, do a little bit of a girl thing, and she wants to build trust with new tribe members. But James, there's just something in his mind that says, I don't know, I don't trust this Ellie. I don't trust her. There's just something off. We're going to talk a lot later about head versus gut, and James has a gut feeling about Ellie, and he ends up being right.
Yeah, a lot of times you do have to go with your gut on Survivor just because people are going to be that good at lying straight to your face. With the move to list out Cody there and the potential for, the idol play, I love not just the Cody part, but also the other two people that Ellie threw out. I think that this was a perfect plan for her just because you could get Cody to toss out an idol. Idol goes out the door, even though he's not going to be getting votes, if someone is spooked, I'd probably lay my idol down if I was Cody and I was a little bit worried about votes coming my way. So completely understandable and a great move to have him be the decoy. But then the two people on Coco, it feels like it really should be both Vessi and Baka working together here. So it makes complete sense. The one asterisk is I am not a huge fan of, someone who is vulnerable being the one to lay out a plan at the merge. It's such an uncertain time when all these people are coming together that if you try to make a move especially at the merge, you're putting your own name out there. You're making yourself more visible to other people, and that can make it just be turned around on you so much easier than if you kind of lay back and maybe let someone, maybe have like Janine go out and put this idea in motion for you because she's not vulnerable. I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of her trying to push towards really anything in this scenario.
To a certain extent, I agree. I am someone who wants to take action rather than inaction and letting that be my action, right? I want to take my fate into my own hands. And because she doesn't have any hardware and she knows where most of the hardware is, I don't mind her being somewhat of a driving force, but we've seen this time and time again, where come merge time, one person is immediately going to just like step on the gas pedal and try and take control of everything, or maybe overplay the position as a swing vote or as a swing voting block. The first one that comes to my mind is Sarah Lucina from season 28 from Kagiyan. We see this right then and there. And then, Chaos Cass ultimately comes up and clips her wings and says, absolutely not. You're not as powerful as you think you are. You're playing both sides. And why don't those both sides just come together and vote you out? This is exactly what happened, except it was sort of 3 or 2 members of Baka caught in the middle, and then Ellie blowing everything up because of bridges that she had burned previously to this. But to your point, this is great for Ellie. I think this is actually the right move for Baka as a whole. Everybody on Baka should want Ellie's plan to work. And there are 2 people that we're going to talk about right now that are kind of befuddling with this, but let's lay the groundwork a little bit more. At the feast, first of all, we're going to get Ryan pitching his final 7 sort of awkwardly. I don't hate the attempt, but it was it was so sloppy.
It's self-awareness. I hope he knew that this had a 0.001% chance of working. People, you're banking on people throwing away all relationships heading up to this point just based on having a challenge win together and being at a merge feast. I really hope he didn't actually think that something would happen here. And it seemed kind of embarrassing, and it almost, I don't think this is going to be the case, but it almost makes you seem like a worse player and someone who people might view you a little bit differently when they're thinking about whether or not you're a good player and a solid player and a threat in the game. So I don't think anything's going to come of it. But it's just like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, it's absolutely naivety showing a little bit. What we're going to get is, of course, everyone kind of pitching why their teammate should be the one to stay. So obviously Ryan is like, nope, I don't want anyone on Coco to leave. And, Vessi's sticking up for Janine's like, I don't want Ellie to go, or Owen or Sammy to go. And, Gabler, he's just like, I don't like Ellie. Ellie searched my bag. Which, reminder to the audience, she did in fact not do that. This is all a fabrication that was concocted by Sammy because Sammy viewed Ellie as a bigger threat than Janine 2 weeks ago. This is one of those little fibs. There's an episode of VeggieTales. I think it's like Larry Boy and like the ever-growing fib or something, and the lie gets so big because the lie is compound, and then eventually it all erupts. This is now paid negative dividends for the Baka alliance. Like Sammy, he still is gunning for Ellie, not seeing the bigger picture that if he flips on this tribe, he's going to lose former Baka votes. And Gabler, he's doing the exact same thing. But I mean, right now, Gabler just throws Ellie under the bus, regardless of whether or not Ellie searched your bag 2 weeks ago, or I guess this is a 26-day season. Regardless if she searched your bag a week ago, this is a bad move. You don't show your cards and go all in with this grouping right now to try and force Ellie out of the game. It's bad.
I keep bouncing back and forth because he knows that Ellie is someone that he does not want to work with, and and that she's a threat. So he's going into the merge here knowing that he's going to try and be strong with the Baka guys, just the guys. And he knows that, and I don't know if he's going to try to get them out in like 2 or 3 votes or what, but it basically ends up being him saying, oh no, we need to make a move on her now, just because we don't have any choice. So I don't know if he'll necessarily lose him any votes, but he's not going to get any favor from Ellie here. So it's going to be an uphill climb if it does end up coming to that, and all the way in Final Tribal.
My big issue with Gabler doing this now, these are untested waters once again. The only certainty that you have is the behavior of the people you know. That's all you have. So the real question, like if this is a good move for Gabler, is can he win with other Baka members with him, or can he only win if the other Baka members are on the jury. Now, if him flipping causes all 4 of the remaining Baka to end up on the jury, that is 4 people who will 100% not vote for him because he flipped. And Gabler, I don't know if he has the wherewithal to get the remaining what will be 5 votes or whatever the number will be, because there'll be 12 people. So there'll be final 3, so 9 total jury likely. That means that he's lost 4 of the 9 of the 5 votes that
He's got to
need.
sweep the rest.
Yeah. So he would need a perfect sweep by betraying Baka. Now, luckily, Sammy seems to be in his corner with this, but this is a horrible move, and it is a mostly surefire way to lose you the game, in my opinion.
I don't think it's necessarily surefire. Gabler's got an uphill climb anyways. I don't know if he knows that necessarily. But what he wanted, he got here. He wanted to throw Ellie's name out there. He wanted her to go home. And it's because he doesn't think that he has a good relationship with her anyways. So, if he makes it to the end and Ellie's on the jury now versus on the jury at, 5th place, I don't know if that necessarily changes her vote either way. So I think she's either going to be with him or against him regardless. Now I don't think she's going to vote for him if he gets to the end. But I think he would have had a hard time getting her vote either way.
My one big caveat to that is, even if you don't like someone, you should only vote them out if they're not going to work with you. Gabler wanting to vote Ellie out, even though Ellie is clamoring for Baka to stay together. That is where Gabler needs to have that recognition to say, oh, you know what? It is better to keep our numbers together for right now, because why would Ellie come for you at Merge? It doesn't make sense. A game of 5 became a game of 13, and all of a sudden it makes sense to keep the 5 together. Gabler does not have the awareness or the ability to step outside of himself and view the pieces on the board well enough to appreciate that. Gabler doesn't want to work with Ellie. Gabler refuses to work with Ellie. Ellie is willing to work with anybody, and that's why I coming down to brass task. That's why I think this is a horrible move for Sammy and a horrible move for Gabler, because whether or not you like her or not, you know her ins and outs, and frankly, you have leverage on her. You can get her out later, solidify a new alliance right now because she's willing to work with you.
I'm gonna go bad move for Gabler. I'm not gonna say this is a bad move for Sammy, because Sammy's reacting to his move. So he's more just trying to glue the pieces back together and shift it in the way, after Gabler comes through like a wrecking ball here. He's trying to pick up the pieces in the best way possible, and the damage is done already from what Gabler has done. So I can't really put anything on Sammy here. I even think he did a good job at trying to pick up the pieces because he didn't have much to work with.
Picking up the pieces after he pushed Humpty Dumpty off the bridge, right? Because he threw Ellie under the bus a while ago. So I see where you're coming. So within the confines of this episode, sure. But I think he was trying to fix it in the wrong way. I think trying to get Baka to stay a 5 for right now was what was best. You can grant him the awareness for realizing Gabler wasn't going to do that, but we also got the confessional from him saying, nope, we got to get Ellie out. So it comes down, do you trust that he was just reacting to Gabler, or do you think that this is what he wanted to do too? And I am going to lean with the latter. I think that he wanted to do this, and I think it was very nearsighted and impulsive and a very bad move. But we're going to get all of this. This is where things are going to get fun, because Ellie confronts Gabler. Now, on the surface, I like this. Let us air our grievances, Festivus, right? Festivus
privately.
Yes, privately airing the grievances, no public forum. Let's figure out what's going on here. Ellie basically says, I don't know who you heard this from. And then Gabler, because he's just airing everything, he's like, oh, well, Sammy told me. And so she's like, aha, sleuthing, cool. We're going to put that one on the back burner for right now. We'll talk to Sammy later. I did not search your bag, XYZ. And Gabler says, yeah, that's fine and dandy. I still hate you. I would not feel good about that conversation walking away from it if I'm Ellie. And to her credit, I don't think she does.
I don't think she does. Gonna be a little bit critical on her though, just because she ends up trying to trust him in the end. And maybe her options were just so limited that she didn't really have a choice. But I would walk away from this conversation basically being like, okay, I need a new plan going forward that does not include 5 Baka votes. And
Yep.
she doesn't really. She puts her trust back into who ends up being Janine, and basically her word saying, no, we're good. And that was a mistake.
Yeah. And I mean, in the course of this conversation, she's going to basically also air back to him that Janine does, in fact, have an idol, which just solidifies in Gabler's mind that Sammy and Owen are the people that he can trust, and that Janine and Ellie are people that he cannot trust. Now, you can't trust anybody in Survivor, and you've lived with them for a while, you know them. You should still probably want to work with them, and to some extent. But we've already sort of beaten that horse to death, so we can leave that alone for now. We're going to continue on the Ellie Storm tour. Hurricane Ellie has arrived. She is now going to confront Sammy and Owen about the Gablers, about the Gabler of it all. They talk about clearing stuff up and, refocusing their efforts to split the votes on Cassidy and James and ultimately take out James and Coco. Sammy and Owen are pissed at Gabler, understandably so, for catalyzing this whole sequence of events. But this is also where we're going to get the confessional saying that Sammy also wants to take out Ellie. He's just not happy at Gabler for how this all happened. Owen, meanwhile, is the only person here in my mind speaking any sense, saying like, guys, can we please just keep it together for right now? Like, this could all fall apart later. I'm going back to that challenge. It's an old one where they have to put a boat together like a puzzle, and it started falling apart, and so they were all holding each other together with their boat.
Oh god, I don't know what season it is, but I know I can picture it perfectly in my head.
Exactly. So this is just all running through my head right now, and meanwhile, James, he wants to take out Ellie. And it makes sense. He's going to go talk with Jesse. And so now Coco and Vessi are building bridges together because Baka has absolutely squandered their ability to sort of play decider.
And word is getting out that there's other things going on than just a really easy vote split on Coco between Baka and Vessi. That was the easy solution, perfect, done deal. Let's go into the merge and work our way forward by dismantling Coco. And word is getting out that that's not going to be the case here, and that there's other shenanigans going on.
Absolutely. And I think that another part is catalyzed from Gabler. When he said that he wants Ellie out, I'm thinking that Vessi and Coco, they're just looking for the least common denominator. There's blood in the water, folks.
As they should.
This is a classic merge vote. Find the fissure and exploit it. So amidst all of these conversations, the capstone is all of Baka, sans Ellie, coming together. So Janine, Owen, Sammy, and Gabler. We need to decide what we're doing right now. And the group consensus at this conversation, in front of Owen and Janine notably, because their votes will be different, is that, yeah, we need to stay Baka strong today for right now. 2 of these people are lying. And the other 2 are just putting all of their hopes and dreams into the currency of trust that they have with Baka. We'll never know to the extent which Sammy was maybe clued in by members of Coco and Vessi on the Ellie betrayal, or I guess the Ellie switch into the vote. So all we have is what the edit gave us, and it said that he wanted her out as well. So that's kind of what I'm moving forward with.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think Gabler started this boulder rolling down a hill, and upon learning more and more about Ellie, which this is exactly what we saw on the episode, but upon learning more and more about Ellie, people on Coco and Vessi basically kept having these light bulb moments. Like there were like 2 or 3 of them that's just like, oh, this is Ellie. Oh, Ellie said this to me. Oh, she's lying about this. So I think at this point, by the time this conversation happened, I don't remember exactly when it was based on what we saw, but it seemed like it was a lost cause. So I think, at least from someone like Sammy or Owen or even, I mean, it doesn't really matter for Gabler since he wants her to go home regardless. But from the other two guys, I think they already know that this is a lost cause and that the plan is shifting very quickly towards being Ellie as a target, not just by Baka, but by the other two tribes as well.
Yeah, it doesn't really explain Owen's vote, but yeah, I think it's maybe just best if we get to tribal council then.
Sure.
So we're going to get a whole lot of yada, yada, yada. Ellie says that she's in danger, and everyone else talks about trust as a currency, but nothing really else of note. Reminder to the audience that Jesse and Janine have no vote. Noelle does have a steal a vote should she choose to use it, and then Carla has an idol, Cody has an idol, Gabler has a temporary idol, and whose idol am I missing?
Janine.
And Janine has an idol. Yeah, Janine has an idol,
which that's the important one because
she's promised that if she senses that Ellie's in danger, she'll play it for her.
Yep, that conversation happened before tribal, that it was a one-on-one conversation like, hey, I'll give it to you if I think that you're in trouble. We see this all the time, and 90% of the time it does not get played, which is almost always the right move. We can talk about that afterwards, whether or not this was the right move for Janine to not play it, but there was actually a pretty open discussion about advantages here at tribal. So it's interesting. It just going back to it, it's pretty obvious that everyone knows where almost everything is.
Yeah, and that's why they have such an open conversation about advantages and idols. It's because unwittingly production has managed to get everyone sharing all of their deepest, darkest secrets, and it's almost impossible not to do it. Which, we've already stated our opinions on the matter. We're here right now. We're analyzing the game. Everybody knows, so we have to figure out, how do we play it live? But ultimately, I mean, the votes are going to shake out. We're going to have votes kind of all over the place. We don't get many tribal councils where 4 different people get votes. So we're going to have 2 votes on James, 1 vote on Cassidy, 1 vote on Owen, 7 votes on Ellie. Ellie is voted out of this game. So just to go through that vote breakdown really quickly. So Owen and Ellie are the 2 votes for James, sort of Baka and Ellie's original plan. 1 vote for Cassidy, which is going to be Noelle. Maybe what I suspect happened with Carla, possibly, is they were just playing some insurance for shot in the dark, because Carla throws 1 vote on Owen, with the remaining 7 all voting for Ellie. So this is a pretty strong consensus. It obviously means that Gabler and Sammy went through with their intent on voting for Ellie, maybe despite this not really being in their best interest in the short term. I don't know. Yeah, Josh, what do you think about the votes falling out like this?
Yeah, that's kind of curious that Owen voted that way. You would think that he would know what was going on between Sammy, Gabler, or any other vote to get Ellie out. Was he not clued in? I don't think he was doing it for insurance purposes, just because he could have put that on anyone, unless they didn't know like the full extent of like who was all in on the Ellie vote. So I really don't know. I don't know.
This was almost the nail in the coffin for me, that Gabler went renegade, Semi went renegade, and Coco and Vessi played it very close to the vest to make sure that Ellie felt comfortable enough not to play shot in the dark, or for Janine to play her idol. I think all of Baka was left out, and Owen just happened to want to go with Baka / Vessi's original plan of voting out James. It's just the plan had changed.
Yeah, and you could say that like he wanted to go with it, and at the very worst, it can work as an insurance play, just in case, for shot in the dark, in case the other tribes do end up going somewhere with Ellie. There's always going to be mystery, and you're putting trust into people who you've never worked with before. When it comes to the merge, so it's not the worst thing in the world to have a couple other votes out there, just in case shot in the dark, idol, steal vote, whatever it might be, comes into play. So I guess it makes sense, even though we don't know the full reasoning for it. It makes sense almost either way.
Yeah, the one interesting one for me is probably Noelle voting for Cassidy, because if Vessi and Coco are working together, it wouldn't make sense for her to cast a shot in the dark insurance vote onto Coco like that. I would think that she would put it on Sammy, who didn't garner a single vote despite being susceptible, despite being exposed, vulnerable, So Noelle, I think, has the best chance of having been left out of the Vessi Coco discussions. And we don't know did this all happen at the 11th hour? was she spending a lot of time with Baka or maybe just near the shelter, and that's where Baka was hanging out? A lot of questions. I suppose we might get answers soon, but
I hope
there,
so.
there might be some fallout. We did see her in the next time on Survivor as a focal point.
And very notably, I know it was kind of mentioned, but no advantages. Not a single one was played here.
And not a single one was eliminated either. So,
No.
uh, so let's talk about like whether or not this was the right move. So, I mean, I think it's pretty much unanimous between the three of us, and Ryan mentioned this. Ellie should have absolutely played her shot in the dark once she realized that Gabler was unwilling to work with her. So it doesn't mean that she has to go and have conversations about doing something else. If you don't do that, you need to be committed to, I think, playing the shot in the dark. I think she should have done it at that point. If Baka's not together, there's blood in the water, and you're exposed.
Yeah, your one vote isn't going to make a difference. So if you think that it could be close between you and someone else or two other targets, I guess technically if there's a split or anything like that, but even in that scenario, it's not really a big deal if your vote goes to waste. The only time that it matters is, if the vote's on you and you don't end up using it. So I don't really see the reason not to play it in this scenario.
I think the reason that she chose to go along with it is because, I mean, we would have gotten a heroes versus villains votes had everything gone her way, but then she uses her shot in the dark because Coco would have unified their 4 votes onto Cody, who doesn't play as idol, and then Cody goes home because the Coco 4 are now only against the 3 and 3 because, again, Jesse and Janine have no vote. So they didn't have enough for her to just play shot in the dark as insurance. So she was really just putting stock into her plan. But I mean, if it means going home or giving yourself a chance at life based on what Gabler did and how the conversations after the initial throwing under the bus happened,
Yeah,
you got to be playing shot in the dark.
Yeah.
As for everyone else, I think for everyone except Baka, this is the right move. So for the most number of people, it is the right move to turn on Baka, the group of 5, and to turn on Ellie for 2 timing, trying to take too much control, sensing blood in the water, and taking advantage of Gabler's animosity toward her. So me and Ryan and we think it was the right move. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was the right move for basically everyone. I'm even gonna toss a couple people on Baka in there just because I'm thinking more post Gabler comment. If we're going like starting the episode, if this would have been the right move, I would have said no. But after Gabler basically opens Pandora's box here at the feast, and I think we're going to be heading down a certain path that is almost inevitable at this point. So I think for most people, actually, including a couple of Baka members, this was the right move.
I think it was more fine for Sammy and Gabler because they kind of got sleuthed out by Ellie, and it wouldn't lend to their advantage in 2 or 3 votes when things start to become a little bit more interesting.
I would have even said maybe the next vote, like
possibly
like, it could have turned on you really quickly. I think Sammy was dead on when I think it was in a confessional when he said we need to make a move on her tonight, and they did. Like, credit to him, they did. He knew when they would be at risk, and even if they do make it through here perfectly scot-free, she could be coming for you the very next episode, so might as well just take her out now.
Yeah, I don't know if we're entirely going to agree on that, but listeners, you got to decide, because this was an interesting one based on like who is it best for. I think for Coco and Vessi, absolutely, just take them, cut out the middleman, right? Direct to consumer.
It's tiers, like
yeah,
like top tier worked for Coco and Vessi. Second tier is like maybe Owen. I don't know, all alone. Third tier is Sammy and I guess Gabler, and then Janine's at the bottom.
Sure. And I think you have Owen flipped because I think it's not great for Owen.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But regardless of that, what did Twitter think? Because we have a poll every week of, was this the right move? Was this the wrong move? We have been at odds with Twitter pretty much this entire season. But what do we have for tonight?
Other than like 1 or 2 votes, yeah, for sure. But according to Twitter, tonight, 82% said that yes, this was the right move.
Once again, we're falling right in line with the shot in the dark, like inverse odds. That's never not going to be fascinating to me. So See, yeah, so you know what? Yeah, Twitter, we agree. And sometimes it's time for a good downfall for a villain. So before we get into best and worst player of the episode, let's just talk about Ellie's game as a whole for just a minute. Even if I still believe that Baca should have found a way to stick together for this vote, this is a classic example of treating people poorly and getting your comeuppance. Because Janine and Ellie unnecessarily, because remember, Baca never goes back to tribal council after all the scheming and plotting, after treating Gabler like he's subhuman, like he's not smart enough to read and interpret an advantage or an idle instruction scroll, and going through all of these lies and these fibs in order to set up the next vote should they need to go to it. That vote never came. And so all you ended up with was a fractured, fissured, ticked off tribe going into the merge because you were playing too hard before the merge. The social game is the most important, and Ellie and Janine being very unaware, particularly Ellie in the pre-merge, reared its ugly head in a nasty way and ended the game, and she is now pre-merge. She didn't even make it.
Yeah, this is a classic play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
This is rule 32.
Where they thought that they're a little smarter than what they actually were, or maybe they thought that Gabler was dumber than what he actually was, and they wanted to be sneaky and try to get him out with an idol in his pocket, even though it was an expiring idol. All of that is just ridiculous. It didn't make much sense. And then not only that, but you try to make moves at the merge on the merge vote when you should probably just lay low. At least in my opinion, you should try not to bring too much attention, because then your name could possibly come up, especially when it could come up from some rogue person from your existing tribe like Gabler. So yeah, it's I think she's a good, I'm not going to say good player, I think she's a smart player and a very knowledgeable survivor player. But sometimes, especially when the game shifts, whether it's a tribe swap or merge or whatever it might be, you want a lot of people are going to want to take action, and sometimes that's not the best thing to do here. A lot of it was out of her hands. She wasn't at the merge feast when Gabler mentioned her name, so she didn't have much control out of that. But that does go back to the things that happened in the pre-merge. So I think she could have gone far in this game. She didn't, and that's the difference between a good player and a average player.
Yeah, I agree. I'll end it on this. Even though we're in sort of a modern era of Survivor where everybody knows everything and there are advantages and twists and idols hiding under every rock, Survivor 101 still taught us, don't be scheming and plotting if you don't know that you're going to tribal. That is something that we learned in like season 2, people. So don't do it. They never went back. And that is what is the most mind-blowing to me, is every time that we visited Baca after they voted out, was it Mariah who was voted out?
She was the first person of the season.
So Baca goes to tribal like night 1. They never go back. Every time we saw them scheming and plotting between episode 1 and now was unnecessary. It was all to pay off this complete and utter just crumbling. For those of you out there who want to play modern Survivor, remember, you still need the basics. You still need the foundation. Don't be scheming and plotting if you don't need to be scheming and plotting. These are real people with real feelings, and you're going to suffer real consequences. I don't really have anything else, so we can just get right into the best worst player, unless you have anything to add.
No, I think we summed it up pretty nicely.
All right, so Josh, who'd you have for best player for the night?
I know you're not going to like this. I was bouncing back and forth between a couple of different people, and there weren't a lot of like really big pushes on moves that I saw, other than someone like Gabler. But I can't give it to Gabler. he got his way. So like efficiency was like 100% for him. But I can't give that to him. I liked someone like James, just because it seemed like he was able to flip things around pretty nicely for himself. But it didn't really seem like something that he did himself. It seemed like it was a result of things that other people did on the tribe. I know you're not going to like it, but I want to give it to here to Sammy. Yep.
No.
Because he cleaned up Gabler's mess and made it work for something that he wanted to do. Maybe he wanted to do it in a couple of votes, but it ended up happening here tonight. He knew he wasn't going to be working with Ellie long term. He knew that, Gabler had a ton of stuff going on here that he was just destroying on his way through the merge. And he did a great job at reassuring Ellie that that they were safe, that it was going to be Baka voting together going forward. And it could be him, or you could maybe give it to Owen as well. But I think that Sammy just kind of turned out a little bit better from this, which is why I leaned a little bit more towards him. But I thought that he just kind of it's not great to move towards this vote in the first place, but the way that he did it was so great to have zero attention on him. Like you said earlier, he was one of the very few people who did not get a vote or any sort of attention tonight. And I think that's just because so much attention was pushed towards Ellie.
For people who are watching this on YouTube, my jaw has been on the floor since he announced this. So I will give to Sammy's credit that he did not get a single vote. And like, I mean, on paper, classic Survivor, he's a great merge boot along with the Ryan or the Cody or, anyone with any kind of like physical presence, right? So like Sammy would have been an easy pick, being vulnerable and not having hardware for people to go after, and they don't. The reason they don't is because of the Gabler of it all, right? Like, why would anybody target Sammy when Gabler is handing you a Baka member on a silver plate? This is a horrible move, I think, for Sammy, because literally just last episode, Ellie was divulging Janine, her closest ally member, Janine's information to Sammy. Ellie wanted to work with Sammy deep into this game,
and that's like true, like absolutely true. I am talking more about what he did with Gabler's actions here, because after Gabler does that, I feel like that relationship is broken, because Gabler gives up Sammy's name and Ellie goes to them basically saying, what's up, dude? Like, what is he talking about? And I think he did such a good job at being able to reassure her and turn it around and realize, oh, I can't have a relationship with this person going forward. And like, they need to go tonight.
Well, I mean, I disagree with you, but I respect the hot take. At least
like none of the negative stuff that happened here was of Sammy's doing. It was
it was all of Sammy's doing, just from a couple episodes ago.
Well, I'm not talking about a couple episodes ago. I'm talking about this episode.
Like, I'm not gonna. I understand congratulating someone for cleaning up their own mess, but like
cleaning up Gabler's mess.
But like, you're sweeping a house that burned down. I mean, regardless, for my best, you actually mentioned the name. I said James. We talked about head versus gut. He sensed something was wrong and he decided to pull the Kagiyan Chaos cast move and be like, hey, why don't we just cut out the middleman? And so he organizes Vessi, and they get together and ultimately make the right move in my opinion, by taking out Ellie and utilizing Gabler's animosity toward her as leverage to get it done. So I gave it to James.
It's the safe pick. Like I said, like I was thinking about James. I'm like, it's boring.
You know what? I feel very good about the James pick for best player. Ryan, which by the way, folks, I have some of his notes in front of me, so I get to see his convoluted point system.
Can you even read it?
You can read it, but it's basically like Fijian hieroglyphics at this point. This is Stonehenge magic nonsense. His best player is Ryan Medrano, and I can't even figure out the backwards calculus that landed him here, because like Josh and I we throw so much shade on him. Like, we threw more shade on him than a tree when he stood up at the merge and was like, how about this be the final 7? No, those first impressions matter, buddy. That doesn't look good. But he said because he won his way into the merge, he's showing a willingness to turn on Coco, but he chose not to because it wouldn't have been smart. He made some inroads with Vessi, which, like, by way of the vote, sure, but I don't think that it was him actively taking a role in it. And then he said because he also helped take down Baka. I feel like 3 of those things were a team effort, and the one thing that was an individual one is willing to turn on Coco but didn't do it, so he didn't actually do anything. So no matter how I feel about Sammy as your best player of the episode, it's definitely not Ryan, and it's and
Yeah,
Ryan's not here.
if you had to choose one, would you rather pick Sammy or Ryan here?
I mean, oh,
Who do you think played a better episode?
I think that Sammy lost a potential ally. I think that Ellie is the kind of player who would let bygones be bygones. She'd be one to talk to Sammy about over strategizing in the pre-merge, right? So I think I would give Ryan a better episode over Sammy, but like within this episode, it's like Ryan didn't do anything. He was a part of a team effort that won, and then he was there, and then he didn't turn on Coco. Like, congratulations, and he looked like a fool at the feast. So it's hard, honestly. Those two are a toss up in my opinion, but you know what?
Okay.
My opinion is James is the best, and none of these 3 are the worst. So for worst, I'll go first. It's Gabler. I think just throwing your entire tribe basically to the wolves at a merge feast because you've got a personal vendetta. Like, yeah, there is over strategizing that took place in the pre-merge, but like, do you want $1 million? Flipping on your OG tribe at vote 1 in the merge is literally like the cardinal sin for winning. Flippers never win. Now they can, but it's more difficult. So I have Gabler.
I really didn't want to give it to Gabler just because it was so effective. Like, he got exactly what he wanted. He wanted Ellie to go home, and he succeeded in that. Yes, it meant that he turned on his tribe, but he felt like that relationship was no longer useful to him and was not going to be viable long term. And so he tossed the name out there, and it burned someone like Janine or whatever, but I don't think they were ever going to work together anyways.
Because of Gabler. Let's be clear of
why.
Because
of Gabler. Because of Gabler. But he had determined that was best for his game. So I'm trying to just trust Gabler here, even though like you can't. So I guess here's where my head was at. I knew it either had to be Gabler or I put down Janine as my other person, just because I think that she was so out of the loop of just like, maybe not out of the loop, but just so socially unaware of what was going on, and so strategically unaware of what was going on. Like, she did so much reassuring to Ellie and thought they were good, and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, she doesn't have a vote or anything like that. Like, but whatever. She thought that all of this was so hunky-dory when this is your closest ally. Like, this is the person that is your number one. So if I was her, like, I would have been doing a little bit more to make sure that Ellie is good and safe and fine. Because otherwise you're going to get broken up, and now you're going to be at the very bottom of probably everyone. Like, yeah, maybe you're a free agent, but you're also just alone. You're not a part of any sort of alliance. So I think she had the most to lose here out of everyone, by Ellie going home. So that's kind of where I was balanced here, is Gabler's odd move that was completely effective, and Janine's just inaction to try to save her closest alliance member.
So we didn't talk about it, but I mean, just really quickly, 10 seconds or less, do you think that Janine should have played her idol on Ellie?
No, I do not. If it comes down to that, I would not play my idol for someone, but I think that she should have done more leading up to it.
Sure. Well, Ryan also picked Gabler as the worst player for blowing up Baka too soon. He left the note, so we're in lockstep there.
I'll officially give it to Gabler, but I want it to be known that I'm doing it very reluctantly. And that I'm giving a dishonorable mention to Janine, just so it's on the record.
All right, so next is, who do we think is going next? Josh?
I think that there's just going to be a complete shift again. I think that this was kind of just a everyone come together and throw stuff at the wall type of vote. There were 4 different names that came up at Tribal with votes, and Ellie wasn't the choice until late in the day. It seemed like, until basically everyone was sick of her doing other things and they just turned it on her. So I think that is a formula for there being a lot of mystery going into the next vote. So with that being the case, I'm gonna look towards someone way off the board that we have seen very little of up until this point. And also kind of thinking about the advantages as well, about who has like idols, steal votes, all that stuff. And the name that I kind of just plucked out from there was Dwight. We haven't seen a lot from Dwight recently, and I think that he could kind of just be a side casualty in a situation like this, where we have idols spread all across and all across this newly formed tribe, and maybe you just have a nice alignment vote where a majority of whatever number we're at now, like 7 or 8, comes together, and maybe like a tribe like Vessi is left on the outs, or maybe some mixture of a couple of people from different tribes comes together, and someone like Dwight is just left alone there.
Oh, well, I love the pick. Ryan and I, we landed on the same person. We both said Sammy. We're basically banking on the fact that Coco and Vessi are going to continue to feast upon the vulnerable Baka tribe. They've bonded over votes now, and Sammy is vulnerable, and he is a great merge boot. And I mean, if you can't get him at the merge, you get him at the next one, or the next one, or the next one. So unless something happens, we both have Sammy, and I'm just going to assume that his logic is the same as mine. Next, Ryan's favorite, who can't win? And I'll start. And again, Ryan and I are exactly the same space that we've been before. It's Gabler. It's Gabler.
Gabler.
Is Gabler. And then for the last section of the episode, it's the Survivor pool, which of course I do not get to partake in, but I do believe that both of you are still in after last week.
Yeah. So my pick was Cody because I had an idol, and Ryan's pick was Janine because she had an idol. So both of us survive on to the next episode. So to catch everyone up, people who are not eligible for me to pick are Gabler, Jesse, Carla, James, Cody. So I'm gonna go with the one remaining person that I can pick that has an idol, and that is Janine. And then for Ryan, he is not able to pick also Gabler, Cody, Carla, James, and Janine. So Derek, who did Ryan pick?
He landed on Noelle, and I'm only going to say that it's probably because she was brought up in the next time on Survivor, and so like 90% of the time they are not the one to go home. So he landed on Noelle.
Yeah, he's out of people with idols.
Yeah, right.
So, maybe he's just going for the next person with an advantage. She has to steal a vote, so maybe that's a little bit of power that she can work with.
Absolutely. Well, this was already longer than a normal one, but it was the merge episode. We had a lot of things to talk about, obviously a lot of dynamics to explore, and of course, Baka's absolute implosion. So, sorry, Ryan. A lot to edit.
Sorry, not sorry. This made up for when Derek was gone and me and Ryan just blew through the episode. So there you go.
Obviously, yeah. So I don't have anything else for tonight. We kind of said it all, but as always, reach out to us if you have any thoughts, or if you think that we're dead dog wrong about something, or our opinion is way off base, anything like that. You can follow us on social, Castaway Pod on Twitter. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We have some Facebook followers, stuff like that. Reach out anytime. We would love to talk to you. Josh, anything else that we should be aware of right now?
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, we'd love it if you subscribed, like the video, smash that like button, all that stupid stuff.
I just puked in my mouth.
Yeah, video stuff is really new to us. If you were trying to watch our last video, the camera ended up failing. I did end up getting it posted without the actual visual stuff, so hope that was still enjoyable for you. But we're still kind of new to the whole video side of things, so bear with us a little bit, right?
Let's be real. It's better if they can't see our faces. We all have faces for radio.
That's fair.
All right. Anything else?
I'm good.
This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Consultants?
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.